Speaker, I call Dr. Rajin Prasad. Can I congratulate Mr. Mitchell for his impeccable, remembering his lines so well, and also the Minister Judith Collins for her impeccable timing into coming into the House just the right moment to hear that particular comment, and not once but twice today. But Mr. Speaker, that probably has been the highlight, and I'd like to tell the Minister that probably has been the highlight of the third reading of this. Yes, indeed, of this, the third reading of this bill, because one would have expected, that at the end of an important process like this, which has taken, I heard somebody say, about 18 months, that here we would have members of the opposition stand up and dutifully take their full time and defend and explain and ensure that particularly the backbenchers would have the time to explain to those who are listening that here I am making the arguments, showing my understanding of the bill in detail, showing how it really improves our justice system, and that's what they would do. But, Mr. Speaker, that's not what we've heard. We've actually have heard very, very short speeches, no real defence of this bill. And again, as I said to Mr. Mitchell, not once but twice, repeating the congratulations for his minister as a way of ensuring the 2 minutes were taken up fully is learning in itself. But there are, as both you and I, Mr. Speaker, will understand, some important provisions in this bill, particularly to do with age. And I guess some difficulty had been perceived with the age of 65, and some people finding it difficult to get to fulfilling their jury time, that they're fulfilling their request to attend jury. And so the bill has addressed that, and I think that's a good thing. And I think that, in this day and age, as our demography in that particular bracket is changing, because remember, the 65-year-old today, Mr. Speaker, is the 45-year-old of yesterday. And I wondered whether that had been factored in, but I guess that some of the adjustments that have been made, there is the option of staying there, and that's a good thing. But I do believe that I would not want to see 65-year-olds written off just yet, because there are many, many more. And I think the Honourable Phil Goff makes a good statement that with the change in our demography, this age group still has a longer shelf life and a much more important role to play in the future. And I think that also ought to be taken into account. The second provision of the bill, Mr. Speaker, is that there's a loophole had been identified that people who were on home detention were somehow still caught by the jury service, and so it fixed that up, and that's a good thing. And thirdly, Mr. Speaker, probably the most serious part of this bill is the accidentally, defendants being made aware of information about jurists, and at least that. I beg your pardon. This member has read the bill, and this member is going to take the full call. And if that member would like to take a call and explain what I'm missing out, that would be great, because I don't know what the member is talking about. But certainly there is indeed the opportunity for that not to happen. Well, that member seems to understand a lot, Mr. Speaker. Why doesn't the member take a full time, like none of the members have done, and explain? Maybe I've got it wrong, and maybe the member will take the next call and explain that. Will the member, Jackie Dean, will you do that? Will you take the next call and explain? Then do be quiet then, because I do have a serious point to make as well. Because you can chip away for next to nothing, but take a call, and that'll be quite nice, because there's plenty of time. We're here till 10 o'clock, and I'm sure that member might like to use that as well. But certainly, the bit that hasn't been factored in, instead of chipping in, Jackie Dean might like to listen. Because there still is, as others have also said, the opportunity for somebody, a defendant, to get that information by other means. And I'm not sure that this particular amendment has taken that into account. So those are the three provisions. But perhaps much more seriously, these seem to be somewhat reactionary. And one has to reflect on the justice portfolio, the justice policies that are coming up, and here's a bill with three provisions taking 18 months to get this far, and one wonders why. Why is this how we're going to do justice? With little bits and pieces every now and again, and maybe that does reflect the government's approach to justice, because often the government will very quickly respond to something that has a perception of them being tough on crime. And there is an element of that in this particular bill, but especially with information about juries become available. So there is that tendency of the government to react to it, to be seen to take a very strong line, link it to we're tough on everything else. But this bill has languished for 18 months. So it wasn't that important, but it hardly represents a well thought out set of provisions around the justice portfolio that we can see in this particular bill. Because we don't, Mr. Speaker. What we see is, like we have seen in other places as well, in the justice portfolio, bits and pieces coming through, bits and pieces going out, but a well thought out set of provisions in the justice area not being what we see. And perhaps we ought not to be surprised, because that also is the approach of the government in other areas as well. The latest one I liken this one, Mr. Speaker, to the attempt to bring in a code of social responsibility for welfare beneficiaries. Now, I'm only just likening those two, one to the other, because here, in a sense, is this notion of being tough on crime. Because there we can see there are approaches to sounding tough on welfare beneficiaries, being very, very punitive, knowing, if we are to take the minister's comments on Q&A over the weekend, knowing that there is no point at all, there is no provision at all, there is no ability at all to service that. So in the same way, Mr. Speaker, this bill is the same. This bill is addressing something to make a bit of noise, to get a bit of limelight, to be seen to be tough on crime, but in the end, it doesn't go very far. The provisions of this bill does not represent a comprehensive approach to a number of the things that in the justice area that need to be examined, need to be looked at. So that's the ideology of government. That's the way they have approached it. So, Mr. Speaker, there's no reason not to support this bill, but there is every reason to use the third reading of the bill to reflect on the extent to which the members of government have been reluctant to defend this bill. To defend this bill in any great detail, apart from somebody chipping in every now and again, to defend its provisions in any significant way. Simply to take a 2-minute call. I'm sure Jacqueline will soon take a call and put me right in where I've got something wrong. I doubt it will happen. I doubt that will happen, Mr. Speaker, but I do invite the member to take a call. There's plenty of time, and there is another national call still to come, and take that and explain to that. So please do that. I know a member might also like to show how this is not a piecemeal approach to the justice portfolio. But there's not enough here, Mr. Speaker, for us not to support the bill, so we'll be supporting it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I call Ian McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.